Hi guys, and a great big warm welcome to episode 60 of the Ask Zofie podcast. And I can't remember if I said this last week, but it really is a warm welcome today because most of you I know listen from the UK, but not everybody. And most of you will also probably know that we are in the middle of a heat wave in the UK. And we don't tend to cope that well when it goes above, I don't know, maybe 22 degrees. Obviously, British people love talking about, discussing, complaining about, moaning about the weather. Typically that it's too rainy or drizzly, but then when it goes beyond that, like 22 odd degrees, we can't sleep. It's too hot to work, and so on and so forth. So the positive thing about not being in the cupboard is that potentially, if I was still in the cupboard, there might be some issues with the heat because it's really warm in the airing cupboard where I used to record these podcasts from. The more challenging aspect of it is that now I'm doing this on YouTube, so you could see me, and I might sort of in 5 or 10 minutes just melt into a big old mess. And had I been in the cupboard, you wouldn't have seen that. So like everything, it has pros and cons. Okay, before I get into it, I'm going to talk today more about mindset. As you know, I am obsessed with both all things manifesting and mindset because, as I say, probably every freaking week, I'm obsessed with helping, with being a source of hope and inspiration for you, and teaching on these topics is a major way of me showing up and doing that. So I'm going to speak on mindset today. By the way, next week, I want to speak to money mindset, either next week or the week after, actually, because there's some other things I want to share, but one or the other. So if you have any issues, any questions, any blocks or stumbling blocks, please DM me on Instagram. I'm just at Relax Me Happy if you don't follow me already, or drop me an email. It's just info@relaxmehappy.co.uk, and let me know and I will cover your question. This is something that I am really fired up about at the moment. So if you've got issues, I'm here for it, and please be in touch. Before I get into things, I'm going to pick us a quote or a couple of quotes, depending on what comes up, from Love Notes from God. Let's see what happens. And I don't know if I've said this before, but I recommend that people use this book like, you can obviously just read it, but like you would a deck of oracle cards or tarot cards, and you just ask a question, you have a question in mind, and then you intend that the book will give you something soothing, an answer. I don't know if you can hear dog barking in the background, by the way. That's my neighbour's dog, and I've got the windows open because it's so warm. So apologies if you can. The mic might not pick it up, hopefully not. But yeah, that might be Jess in the background. Shout out to Jess, the neighbour's dog. Haven't done a dog shout out before. Okay, but I'm going to, yeah, and in terms of what comes up, I do this often, and every time it just wows me, the pertinence of the page or the quote that I pick. So let me pick one for you, the listener, and see what comes up. Okay. I'm going to read both pages, actually. The first one is, all pain carries purpose within. My divinity leaves no stone unturned, no moment forgot. Come home to me where all makes sense, all fallen in perfect place, all at peace. And then the second page quote is, unfurl your worries with me. Let them simply melt into my love. That's an interesting word considering the heat wave, and that's another thing that happens a lot of times with this book, is that it's got the humor of the divine in it in terms of the quotes that come up. Melt in my love. Yeah, a lot of this is about just taking some rest, coming home to yourself, coming home to the divine. This is key. I sometimes think of it as like coming back to your corner, if you're thinking of the analogy of a fighter, and if you've seen a boxer or whatever, in between rounds, they go back to their corner, they get patched up, they're coach or whatever they would call it, trainer, will be in their ear, like telling them useful things, giving them reminders. And so often in life, we don't do this. So it's like, metaphorically speaking, we're round after round after round, taking hit after hit after hit from life, and we're not regrouping. In other words, we're not meditating, we're not spending time in nature, we're not sleeping, we're not spending time alone. And we wonder why we feel beat up, because we're not replenishing, we're not nourishing, we're not nurturing ourselves. And this is key. And I think, I've talked about the heat, but it doesn't tend to get that hot that often in the UK, so we're not used to it. If you go to somewhere like Spain or whatever, maybe not so much now, but historically have had siestas, and they live in a manner that is conducive to them thriving in that heat. And so when it's hot, really, you want to slow down. And we don't tend to want to go with these cycles and circles of life. And this is one of the challenges that we face, not because of the cycles and the circles, but because of the fact that we don't go with the flow of it. Anyway, brief behind the scenes before I get into this week's mindset chat. Sorry, I was just bumping the table then, and it caused my laptop to jiggle a bit, which reminds me that my daughter kept telling me I had a jiggly behind the other day, which probably if you're 20 you might want, but I'm 44, I don't want that. Anyway, not hating on jiggly behinds, by the way. I just personally don't want mine to be super jiggly. Anyway, I've distracted myself. Oh yeah, okay, behind the scenes. So this weekend I spent with Daniel. It was a weekend when neither of us had our children with us. And so we got to spend that time, just the two of us. Who sang that song, Just the Two of Us? Oh my goodness, I'm sweating, by the way. Okay, so yesterday I was like, why don't we can get the train. There's like a local train station. I've never got the train from there, like a really small local station. You can get the train. It's like 4 minutes to another local-ish train station. It's 4 minutes away. It's like, why don't we walk down? We can walk through this leafy green bit by the river, get the train into Clifton Down, just go grab a coffee, wander around. And we did this. We actually missed the train, which was my fault, by like 3 minutes. We went through like this adventure in what felt like the frickin' jungle, but it was really fun. And the next one was an hour later. We almost missed that one because we were just laying on the grass and then suddenly realized, oh my God, we've got to go. Anyway, we got the train in. I've never done that before. It was really fun, and just wandered around this area called Clifton Down in Bristol. Got a coffee. It was actually really quiet. I think everyone was so scared to go out because it's so hot, and the media have whipped it up into this like, if you leave the house you will die of heat stroke stuff. So it was nice, and we sat outside a cafe and it felt like we were abroad because it was just so warm. And we went into a greengrocer's next to the coffee shop, and it was, I think, probably an Asian greengrocers, and they had all these fruits that I've never seen before and all these really interesting things. And then we ended up in another Asian supermarket, but just wandered around this area. And it was kind of like a bit like being a tourist in my own city. And the point is, as we were walking back, I was like, there's so much, like if we just think about the area where I live, and obviously I'm lucky, but there's the woods behind me, there's another wooded area with an old house called King's Weston. There's a bit that we walk through, you can get the train in both directions. There's so much, it's sort of, it's to experience just within a few mile radius. And whatever kind of area you live in, this is not the point. One is coming at life with these fresh eyes, like you are a tourist. Like if you just landed in a place, you'd have this sense of excitement about it, and seeing where you live like this, and also seeing life like this through the eye, like as if it was through the eyes of a child or someone who is terminally ill, because those points of view are very different to the point of view of the vast majority of us, which is just very surface level, just getting through life. You know, like when you say to someone, how are you? Oh, I'm surviving. Like, what? You are a miracle. Your life is a miracle. And I think this is one of the things I feel so thankful that I've been able to achieve in my life is this mindset that is so much clearer and so much more childlike slash immature, positive, and this is massive relative to whatever it is in life. And we had such a lovely day, like I say, literally walking through the woods, along the river, on the train, getting a coffee and a piece of cake, and then coming home and cooking dinner together. Nothing exciting, like, or particularly Insta worthy, but steeped in the deepest joy because of the appreciation that we have, you know, for one another, for our lives, for where we live, and so on and so forth. And this has got nothing to do with where we are. It's a perspective, and each of us can lean into this and glean more from those simple pleasures in life. The mind will tell you it's about the big ticket stuff, like, you know, winning the lottery or getting the job of your dreams or an amazing holiday. These things happen rarely, if ever. And if you pin your hopes on this, you live your life just with this sense of need and background, sort of yearning and disappointment, and it freaking sucks. Whereas when you start to really appreciate the small things, like your morning cup of coffee, or the sunshine, excuse me, on your face, or a hug from a loved one or a child, in time, it just doesn't take much to keep you happy. Okay, I went on and on about that, so I'm going to shut now about that and get cracking in terms of what I want to speak to you today. So last week I mentioned Byron Katie. Some of you will already be aware of her, some of you maybe not. I can't remember how much I said about her last week because I can't remember what I did like an hour ago. I have the memory often of a goldfish. I'm like just in the moment and like, what? I don't know what happened yesterday. Someone tell me. So Byron Katie is amazing in my humble opinion. I actually saw her in person at an event in London, maybe about 10 years ago, I forget, hashtag goldfish brain, and was really taken by her. Is that the right saying? I'm not sure. Hopefully you know what I mean. Impressed by her and the fact that she absolutely walks the walk. I could just feel it in her. She just exudes that presence. And she developed a process called the work. And someone said once that it's kind of like she puts Eckhart Tolle's stuff, for want of a better word, into this kind of practical format through the process of the work. And this is what I want to speak to today. Now, I've talked about this a lot, but over the years, I've done a bunch of crazy ass things to cleanse my mind, to purify my consciousness, to sort of cause me to climb out of the mind trap or traps that I was stuck in, like so many of us are for many, many years, like, you know, ayahuasca and the Course in Miracles meditations and daily meditation and fasting and time on my own, and then the retreat in Italy and so on and so forth. And so I know that I'm in this level of consciousness where I perceive and feel and observe things differently because there's less of that murk in my mind. And this process from Byron Katie really helps to get you into that place, because the truth is, it's not the thing that's happening to you that is causing you the discomfort. For example, it's not someone losing their job that is the cause of their depression, or somebody being dumped that is the cause of their anxiety. It's the thing that happens, and then ultimately your narrative around that, how you feel about that, how you interpret that, the story that you tell about that, the meaning that you attribute to it. So if, for example, you got made redundant and you were able to immediately go, a bit like I was talking about with Byron Katie last week, there must be something better for me, because the alternative suggests that God is a masochist, or the universe doesn't have my back, or the universe isn't friendly, and I don't subscribe to that belief. So it's just pure and simple, there must be something better. Obviously, that person who was able to interpret it in that way would not feel pain and discomfort, because they'd just be like, okay, well, that's the whole rejection is protection, or rejection is redirection. Oh, I wonder what the better thing is. But if you got made redundant, for example, and then went, oh my God, this is terrible. Why does this always happen to me? This is so unfair. Why was I the only one? That narrative, not the fact that you got made redundant, is going to cause the pain. It's your response to it. So this process from Byron Katie, you can go to her website, by the way, and you can get a worksheet and go through this for free. You can watch her on YouTube. It's fascinating to observe as she takes people through the process and see the shifts in them. And she's got a bunch of books. I've got one of them, I can't remember the name, but it's great. But yeah, you can start out with free content, whatever. And obviously she's not paying me to share this, by the way. I would love to be an affiliate of Byron Katie, but definitely not quite there yet with my 6 podcast listeners. Actually, I'm sort of, what's the word, downplaying. It's at least 10 jokes. Okay, so, and actually what I say to myself if I ever feel a bit disheartened about that is that Oprah Winfrey used to have to bribe people to go on her show. She used to have to give out free coffee and stuff. So that keeps me going in moments of doubt. Okay, so what you do with this process is you write down a judgmental thought. And by the way, when I was at the workshop, it was really funny because she had people from the audience go up and share their worksheets, and this woman, and you have to just completely unedited write it down. You know, my husband is lazy, he disgusts me, whatever it might be. You're not trying to make it pretty, you just get it out. And she'd written it about her partner, and I can't remember what she said, but it was some quite sucky stuff because she'd stuck to the what's the word, the remit. Yeah, I remember the word. I didn't think that was going to come. And then halfway through she's like, oh, he's here with me, by the way. It was so funny because I just thought this poor guy is just being kind of outed in this public arena. But anyway, what you do is you write down your judgment. So say, for example, your friend says something you didn't like, you go, she is so rude. And then you have 2 questions that you have to answer with either a yes or no. It doesn't matter what you say, but you can't say, you know, like, is it Catherine Tate that was like, yeah, but no, but you can't do that. It has to be yes or no, you have to pick. So she's rude, you say yes. And then the second question is, can you absolutely know beyond doubt that she's rude? And you might be so stuck and you go, yes. Or you might think, well, I can't know beyond a shadow of a doubt that she's rude. So you say no, doesn't matter what you say. And then the third question is, and I'm not reading these out verbatim, it's just words to these effect. The third question is, how do I feel? What happens? Who do I become when I believe this thought? So say you were talking about your friend being rude. How do you feel? What happens? You might feel annoyed. You might distance yourself. You might not reply to her message. You might start thinking about all the other people that are rude to you, all the other times she's been rude to you. And then the fourth question is, who would you be without that thought? So she's still done the thing that your mind has deemed rude, but you haven't gone along with she's rude. Who would you be without that thought? And it's typically something like calm, at peace, happy, nonchalant. And this is where it gets you to start to see, whoa, it's not what she did. It's my narrative pertaining to it that has caused me to react in this way. And it can typically set off this chain reaction that is huge, that has this ripple effect. Like I was talking about this with one of my members this morning. There are certain thoughts that are heavy hitters, and when we let them in, they allow these deluge of thoughts on the back of them. And one of them for me, because when I was growing up particularly, I was very uncomfortable about lots of things, but my looks and my body was one of them. And I had body dysmorphia and really didn't like how I looked and my body and being in my body and so on and so forth. And so even to this day, logically, I know I don't look like the back end of a bus, but if I see like a photograph of me that's maybe unflattering, or I catch sight of myself in a mirror and I think, oh, I don't like how I look or whatever, if I let in the thought, something like, oh, you're disgusting, that my mind would like to say, oh, you're ugly, that's when the deluge comes. And I was sharing with this member this morning that in a coaching session, I had the realization that if I just reframe that immediately to, this is what an attractive woman looks like in the morning, or this is what an attractive woman looks like on a bad day, or this is what an unflattering picture of an attractive woman looks like. The power of that is not necessarily those words per se, is that they stop me from going down into that rabbit hole of, oh my God, I just don't look right, or whatever it might be that would come along with that thought. I don't know if that makes sense, but that might be helpful for someone. So I'm sharing. Okay, so yeah, the fourth question is, who would I be without that statement if I didn't believe that statement. And as you do this again and again, you start to see, whoa, and you focus on, I'd be at peace, I'd be calm, I'd be unflustered, I'd be nonchalant. And you start to build and build and build this sense of, you tether yourself to the truth of who you are, which isn't this mind-led reality and tension. And then the final part is what Byron Katie calls the turnaround, where you basically turn around the statement. So instead of she's rude, you'd say I'm rude, or she isn't rude. And you look for essentially opposites. And the mind cannot stand this, because the mind loves to be attached to what it perceives as truth. And there's a really cool quote, let me see if I can remember it, which is, if you argue for your limitations, you get to keep them. This is ultimately how dumb the mind is, because the mind would like to argue, well, no, she is rude. It's not helpful to have this belief. It's not about what's true or not true. It's not helpful for you. The wise thing is to choose the thoughts or statements that are helpful. The mind-led dumbass thing is to go with what's true or might be true, or I can find the evidence for. You can find evidence for anything. This is how law of attraction works. Your beliefs act as self-fulfilling prophecies. You believe your mate's rude, you're going to find evidence of it. We've got a reticular activating system in the brain that filters out anything that doesn't match it with our current beliefs and lets in everything that does. That's why if you believe the world's a scary place, you see things to be afraid of everywhere. That's why if you believe that people are fundamentally good, you'll see examples of this everywhere. So you want to choose your beliefs with care, not based on what you can find evidence of, because you'll find evidence of whatever your beliefs are. Anyway, so the mind can't stand this. And remember, it's not about letting her off the hook. It's not about staying friends with someone that isn't kind to you. It's about you achieving mental clarity and not being impacted and not reacting from a place of fear, instead responding from a place of clarity. You can still choose to take yourself out of a friendship or a job or a relationship or situation that you don't enjoy, but without this whole vernacular narrative of this person's rude, this is terrible, why does this happen? Otherwise, because wherever you go, you take yourself with you, you recreate that situation with a different friend, with a different job, with a different partner. When I was with my ex-husband, I worked on myself, on the inner stuff, heaps, so that I did not recreate that kind of unhealthy relationship. Otherwise, I would have left him physically, but I would have recreated it physically had I not changed on the inside. This is key. And sometimes people say, well, if I become all kind of spiritual and airy-fairy and love and light, won't people just walk all over me? This is not true. You don't, if you really love yourself and care about yourself, of course you're not going to let people walk all over you. On the contrary, it's just that you're not doing it in this aggressive, reactive way. It's a response from a place of calm. It's natural to do that when you care about yourself. And the more that you clear your mind, the more that you naturally care about yourself, because your soul cares about you and you line up with this. Okay, so the final part is you turn it around. And this is just to get you to see that what your mind is telling you, the thoughts it's coming up with are not like this solid knock on wood truth. There are other options. And then you write down examples of maybe where you have been rude, or maybe where she hasn't been rude. And it's just like deconstructing and taking apart, like I say, this narrative of the mind and helping it to begin to crumble so that you can begin to perceive things with clarity. If you haven't seen this process, if you're not aware of the work, I highly recommend you go check it out and work through it. Your mind won't like it. This is the same for anything that is going to bring about your growth. So just be prepared for that and know that ultimately it's enormously helpful for you. Whenever you forgive someone else, for example, you can forgive and not condone what they've done. This has happened to me many times in my life. Forgiven people, but still said, I don't think they were a great ex, or I don't think that relationship was healthy. So the two aren't linked together. Forgiving someone is not letting them off the hook. It's letting you off the hook. You know that saying, which is something like, wishing vengeance on someone is like taking poison yourself and expecting them to be poisoned. It doesn't work that way. It's you. Sorry, I just hit the microphone then. It's you that gets damaged. It's you who is set free when you shift your mindset, when you forgive the other person. Okay. Yeah, so go check that out. There's just one final thing I want to say. I've been talking about this heaps recently, and I'm going to talk about it probably when I do the money mindset, when I speak a bit to money mindset on here, and certainly, or almost certainly, when I do the money mindset masterclass. By the way, anyone, and this is an awesome offer, anyone who's in my membership will have a free space to the Money Mindset Masterclass, 8 p.m. August 2nd. It's a Tuesday. I so feel the power of the shifts that I've experienced around money and how impactful they're going to be for you. So please, if you are one of those people who has money blocks, money worries, concerns about money, wants more money, whatever it is, please join me for that masterclass. You will be able to pay, it'll be £25, but if you're in the membership, you'll get a space for free. And obviously don't feel obliged to join the membership if you don't want to be in it. It's just, I want to share this information with as many people as I can and give as much value as I can to my members. So as I always do, or pretty much always do, I'll share the link to sign up for membership in the show notes. And it's £7.99 a month, by the way, and you can cancel anytime. And there's, I don't know how many meditations in there now, loads, basically, well over 50. And the most recent one that I've done, called Magnetize Money, which I've been using every day, which is freaking awesome. Anyway, I digress, because the thing that I was going to say that I'm going to share at the start of that masterclass that I've been speaking to heaps recently relative to mindset is that so much of this stuff is about mindset shifts, but really paradigm shifts, really a full 180 in terms of one's perspective. And ultimately what you're doing is shifting out of the human, the mind-led perspective into the soul, the higher self perspective, which is vastly different from how most of us are perceiving much of the time. And it's the highest, it's the purest, it's the most, it's the wisest, it's the most effective perspective. Oh, I did a rhyme there, I didn't even mean that. And so the more that you can line up with this, the better you'll feel and the better things will go for you. This is massive. Ultimately, at the core of the core of the core of who you are, you know that all is well and everything is going to be okay. And the closer you can get to this, the more that you can tell yourself and align yourself with this, the better you feel and the better that life will go for you and flow for you. And I'm here to inspire you to do that, to make those mindset shifts, to step into this lighter perspective, more positive perspective, ultimately to feel better and enjoy your life more. And on the back of that, you always achieve success, because this is just the way that the universe is set up. Okay, I really hope that Byron Katie stuff helps. Please let me know if you check it out. And by the way, some of you have very kindly told me that you've shared, that you've listened to this on Instagram. If you don't tag me, I can't see it and I can't thank you. So please, would you tag me when you do that? Then I can share it and then I can thank you. I love to see like what you're doing, like dog walking or gardening. One of you, I'm not going to say your name in case you don't want me to, but showed me some awesome pictures of your garden, which looked like it was the Chelsea Flower Show or something. I was so impressed with that. And I know a lot of you listen while you're dog walking and stuff. It feels really nice to me to feel that sense of connection. I'm all about connection. And sometimes, as I said before, it's not so easy to get that when I'm just chatting into the microphone and into the camera. So I really appreciate that and like to share my gratitude towards you. Okay, I hope that you managed to be a bit slower if you're in the heat and if you need that anyway, and keep cool. And don't worry if you're in the UK, we'll be back to rain soon. Sure as night follows day. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm not sure how many weeks, let me just see, because I probably am going to take a break in, what we've got, one. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I think there is only one Monday left in July. So it might be only one more podcast before I take a break for August. How will you cope? I do not know. You can always go back to the old episodes or be in my membership and you can listen to my meditations there. But yeah, next week will be the last week for a month. And I'm going to come back all refreshed and hopefully less sweaty in September. So I'll do the money mindset chat next week in that case, because there's no choice, right? So that'll be exciting. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for your support. Have an awesome rest of your day. And I will be back next week for one final podcast episode before a little break. And then obviously back in September. Lots of love. Bye.